Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA podcast. I'm your host, André Natera. On today's episode, we're going to call it Messy Kitchen, Messy Food. Stay tuned. Now, before we get started, here's a brief update. I have some guest episodes coming up next. The next one that I'll put out next week is with Alex Gonzalez. It's the service episode. So I brought on an expert with regards to front of the house service team, and he's amazing. I've worked with him for a number of years. He's worked at some great restaurants. So if you're interested in service, you don't want to miss the next episode. If you want access to it early, as well as other exclusive podcasts, you can subscribe to my Substack channel. Premium members on my Substack channel get 15% off anything from the Chef's PSA store, ebooks, including the new one that I just put out, Bad Cooks Everywhere, audiobooks, exclusive podcasts. I'm going to release them there first before they come out to the general public for everyone else. Also, here's my new book, Bad Cooks Everywhere. If you haven't got the paperback version, it's already out. Bad Cooks Everywhere, go get it. Ebook version is out. The audiobook version is wrapping up as we speak. I'm hoping to have that available on Audible in the next few weeks. So if you're waiting for the audiobook version, it's in the works. I've also put out the new Spanish version of Culinary Leadership Fundamentals on audio as well. So what prompted this episode? Well, what prompted this episode was a voicemail that I got. So one of my friends reached out to me and said, we got to talk about dirty kitchens and some of the nasty things that happen behind the scenes that people don't talk about. I'm a big believer in working clean and having clean kitchens. It's underrated. So today's episode, we're going to cover the downside of having a dirty kitchen, some things that you could do. And it's not just from a sanitation standpoint. So obviously, first and foremost, the reason why you want to have a clean kitchen is because you want to serve clean, healthy food. You don't want to be getting anyone sick with E. coli, salmonella, or any of those other foodborne illnesses. You want to make sure that everyone has proper hygiene in your kitchen. They're washing their hands, or they're wearing gloves, or they're wearing their gloves and washing their hands. Every state is different, so I'm not sure what proper protocol is where you live, because not everywhere has a glove policy. So it's funny, I see people getting mad on Instagram all the time when they see people cooking without gloves, but not every state requires you to wear gloves. Some frown on gloves because they want you to wash your hands, and they think wearing gloves incentivizes people to not wash their hands. But it's not just about clean food. It's also about efficiency and work. A clean, organized kitchen, it's a pleasure to be in. It just feels better when you're working in a clean kitchen versus a dirty one. Everything has its place. Everything is organized. Everything's labeled and dated. There's proper hierarchy. Vegetables and ready-to-eat food on top. Poultry and shell eggs on the bottom. Glass on the bottom shelf. Why glass on the bottom shelf? Well, because if the glass breaks, it's not going to fall down on the thing below it. So that's why that's a good rule of thumb, is you always put glass on the bottom shelf. Depending on where you are, there might be hierarchy that's very specific. Usually it's ready-to-eat foods on top, whole muscle that's typically going to be cooked at 135 degrees below that, then whole muscle meats, pork, beef, then ground meats, and then poultry on the bottom, or eggs. And the reason that is, so for people that don't understand, I might blow your mind with something so simple. A lot of people already know this, but maybe you don't know this. The reason that food hierarchy is done that way, with ready-to-eat foods on top and potentially hazardous foods on the bottom, is that if contamination happens down, it's okay, but contamination can't happen from bottom up, meaning that the chicken is going to be cooked to about 165, usually in most places, depending on the law. Ground meat's going to be 155 or so, and then 135 for whole muscle. And seafood is roughly the same, 135, 145, depending on where you live. Then produce and ready to eat, you don't necessarily have to cook it. If the chicken drips on the vegetable crudité, well, you have a problem, because you're not going to cook the carrots and the celery to 165 degrees. But if the celery juice drops on the chicken, you're still going to cook it to 165, so you're okay. If the ground meat that needs to be cooked to 155 Fahrenheit drops on the chicken, you're okay, because you're going to cook it to 165. But if the chicken contaminates the beef, you're only cooking it to 155, not the 165. So you're not killing all the potential pathogens that are in there. So that's why the hierarchy is built that way, for those of you that didn't know. I think everyone knows that, especially if you're working in a kitchen, but maybe you don't. So anyway, that's why hierarchy is set up the way it is. I mean, the ideal situation in a kitchen is you want to have different carts or different storage areas for different things. So you don't necessarily store your produce on the same cart, speed rack, as your chicken. You'd want to have, a designated poultry area, a designated produce area, designated ready to eat area. You want to make sure everything's labeled and dated, rotated. And it's funny, people get really picky about the way you should label and date. Some people are like, you have to put the expiration date. Some people say it's 3 days out. Some people say you have to put the label of when you're throwing it out, 7 days later, 3 days later. Everyone's different. Every state and city I've worked in has had a different protocol. So don't listen to me, listen to whatever your state and local health regulations say. If they say it's 3 days, it's 3 days. 7, it's 7, whatever the case may be. Make sure it's labeled appropriately. I'm a big believer in tape, green tape over blue tape. Blue tape's fine too, but for those of you that don't know, this is why I'm a green tape person over a blue tape person. Is I was helping out a friend in a kitchen and their light bulbs were out in their walk-in cooler. And as I walked in looking for my mise en place, there were certain things that were labeled in blue tape and certain things that were labeled in green tape. And the things that were labeled in blue tape, I couldn't read, but the things that were labeled in green tape in the dark were much easier to see. So it was at that moment that I became a green tape person. So I used to be a big blue tape person, but now I'm a green tape person. For the only reason is that I think it's easier to read the Sharpie and the label that's on that container. So anyway, we digress. Everything's labeled and dated. It's nice and organized. Everything's properly rotated. First in, first out, FIFO. You have a general cleanliness practice. Employees know to wash their hands. When do you wash your hands? As they say, after every possible point of contamination. You touch something that contaminates it, wash your hand. When switching jobs, wash your hands. Wipe your cutting board, sanitize it. Make sure you have sanitation solution on your station. Make sure you're using it. When I would do kitchen walks, I wouldn't necessarily want to find clean sanitizer because clean sanitizer 2 hours after the shift started means they haven't used it once, right? So you want to make sure that sanitation water is being used and that people are encouraged to use it. You're changing it out every few hours depending on what you use or depending on what your regulation says. Most places give you a little strip so you could test the strength. You want to have a cleanup procedure. I've been seeing a lot of these Instagram videos lately of a lot of high-end kitchens. I think Justin Cogley put one up the other day, shout out to Justin, where he was scrubbing down, scrubbing the floor, sweeping, squeegee, all that. I think Mugaritz occasionally puts some of those videos up as well. I don't know why, I really enjoy watching the kitchen scrub down videos. They're cool to me, but there's a proper procedure to scrub down. Everything should get cleaned. The floor should get scrubbed, then with soapy water, then they should get squeegeed into the drain. If you work in some of those types of kitchens that want to make sure that the stainless is always buffed back and forth motion only with a little green scrubby to make sure that there's no circles on the stainless steel, no circle scratches. So depending on where you work, I used to make my cooks buff them straight back and forth. A lot of places do that. Some places it doesn't matter, but anyway, you do what you want. You want to make sure that your kitchen's clean and organized. You want to remove things from your kitchen that aren't necessary. And you want to make sure that your kitchen is organized in a flow so that people can always find things and know where they are, and that the cooler is clean, it smells good. Back in the days, I used to love the smell of bleach. Back when we used to be able to mop with bleach, I don't think you can anymore in a lot of places, but when a walk-in cooler would smell like bleach, it was like, yeah, that's great. I used to love it because you knew the kitchen was clean. You knew the walk-in was clean. The smell of bleach brings back good kitchen memories for me of clean kitchens. Now, I've worked in really dirty kitchens, and there's a lot of really dirty kitchens out there. I pride myself in having a clean kitchen, and when people would come over to be a guest chef or whatever, I want to make sure that the kitchen's pristine. We do a big scrub down, make sure it's ready. I want people walking into my kitchen feeling welcome and saying, wow, you have a really clean kitchen. There's no bigger compliment sometimes from chef to chef than to say, wow, you have a really clean kitchen. If they don't say it, it's because they're not thinking it. And I've gone to some kitchens that are nasty. I went to go work in this celebrity chef's kitchen when I was young. So I don't know, I was maybe like 23 years old. I won't say the chef, but I remember I walked into their kitchen to go work and stage for the day. And I was disgusted at how gross that kitchen was. I was like, this is one of the best restaurants in the country. And there's pieces of the ceiling crumbling and falling into the stock pot as they were making their veal stock or whatever it was that was simmering overnight. And it was like right below the crumbling ceiling. And I just remember thinking, this is one of the best restaurants in the world. That's crazy. It blew my mind. I've also worked with some great chefs that create amazing food, and they're dirty ass chefs. It looks like a tornado's gone through their station. I think it's a sign of a professional that could work clean and not just keep their station clean, but keep their uniform clean, whatever they're wearing, their apron. One of my biggest pet peeves early on, you'll read this in the first Chef's PSA book and some of the early PSAs. A good chef never wipes their dirty hands on their clean apron. Nothing drives me more crazy than Someone doing that and picking up their apron and drying their hands. To me, that's gross. Respect the apron. The apron should be clean. You go to the bathroom, take the apron off, roll it up nice and tight. I roll mine like a burrito. I put it on the side. I never take it into the restroom with me. And for those of you that are going into the restroom with your apron, like, what are you thinking? Like, you can't just flip it over your shoulder. I mean, what are you doing? I don't know what you're doing, but it sounds nasty. And then it's even worse when the restroom that you have to use is also the guest restroom. And so like you're in there with your apron and the guest is waiting to use the bathroom. And then here comes the dirty cook coming out of the restroom with their apron on, drying their hands on their apron. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were waiting. It's like, fuck, that's so gross. Chefs, don't wear your apron to the restroom. There's nothing grosser than that. Nothing. Make sure you're washing your hands too when you're coming out of the restroom. Anyway, we digress. Where were we? I went to this restaurant once in Dallas, and it was a great restaurant. Food was incredible. I was loving the vibe. And the executive chef came over to have a conversation with my friends and I that were sitting at the table. And I remember he walked up, he was a nasty, dirty chef. Just nasty. Dirty t-shirt, dirty apron, came up rubbing his hands on his apron. Just not the most professional chef I've ever come across. I won't say who, but I just remember thinking, like, you're in the middle of your dining room. It's a high-end restaurant, and you're coming out looking like that. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want to eat the food anymore. Like, if that's how you look, how do the cooks in the back operate? Everyone's judging your kitchen. Whenever a chef goes into your kitchen, trust me, they are judging your kitchen and how clean it is. Chefs are judging people. I don't know why. We just are sometimes. Probably makes us feel better about our inadequacies. Anyway, I've been in kitchens and I've seen and I know of, the drains are backing up, but they're like, keep serving food. We can't lose the money. There's roaches in the kitchen and they're like, sorry, pretend you don't see them. There's some disgusting things that happen in kitchens. The fact that these are disgusting conditions in which people are working, and it has to keep ownership and chefs honest. If you've never been more incentivized to make sure you have a clean kitchen, right now is the time. Because trust me, in today's world, it's very transparent. If you're running a dirty kitchen, people are going to know. The most honest thing you could do is you could be like those kitchens that have cameras in their kitchen. That way people could see how you work, or open kitchens. Those are great because they keep you honest. When you're back there in a dungeon, in a basement kitchen, drains are backing up, faucets don't work, there's no hand washing sink, you're out of soap, right? The guest doesn't know that. You know that, but the guest doesn't. I think if we want more transparency and cleanliness in kitchens, open kitchens are the way to go, or cameras so that people could see. Like, I think eventually people are going to demand to see what's going on in the kitchen before they eat their food. People want to work in clean kitchens. People want to eat in clean restaurants. I'm going to play a voicemail that I received from a friend of mine the other day talking about dirty kitchens.
Yeah, what's going on, Chef? Yeah, I know, long time no talk. Man, we both been busy. But yeah, man, I'm telling you, you really should sit there and do a podcast, one episode, about all of the dirty shit that goes on inside of a kitchen that nobody talks about. Because I'm telling you, like, my chef, my boss, disgusting. And that Bain Marie picture is just proof, because they just refuse to clean that shit. Like, there ain't even no proper pipe that it connects to, for it to drain. So, this shit just nasty as hell.
So when I got that voicemail, I thought, okay, I got to do a podcast on cleanliness and sanitation, which I don't think I have done one already. I probably haven't because it's kind of a boring subject, but anyway. Last thing I want to talk about is health inspections. What are some things that you could do to make sure that you have a good health inspection? One of the things that I've done in the past is I would have, obviously, first and foremost, you want to make sure you're running a clean kitchen. That's the obvious answer. But what are some other things that you can do besides the obvious? One is you have a fire drill, meaning when a fire drill happens, health inspectors here, everyone knows what they need to do. Every place is different. For example, maybe someone says fire drill and they know, like, okay, fill sanitizer buckets. Someone else is on labeling and dating. Someone else is sweeping and mopping. Someone else is checking fridge temps, whatever. Someone else is going around making sure that everyone has gloves and sanitation buckets on their station. Everyone has an action item that they need to do during the fire drill, and they know what their job is. Then you occasionally have a fire drill. You don't tell them if it's real or not. You just say health inspector, whatever the code word is, and you see how people operate to get the kitchen in order. Now, ideally, obviously, your kitchen should always be in order, but let's be honest, that's not always the case. And who doesn't want a better score? There is human error happening in kitchens. We are dealing with people. Just because you're an excellent chef and you have 10 excellent cooks doesn't mean that the 11th isn't a knucklehead and forgot to cool down something properly and forgot to label and date it, right? This happens in every kitchen. If you think otherwise, then you haven't worked in enough kitchens. So having a fire drill is good. When the health inspector gets there, it should be obvious. You never put the health inspector in the kitchen without the chef knowing. There's nothing worse than turning around and being like, hey, the intern just let the health inspector in. He's waiting for you in your office, or they're already going around taking temperatures without you knowing, right? Nothing worse than that. You want to make sure the health inspector, have them wait. The chef should go meet them first. Always walk with them. Don't be an asshole to the health inspector. Like, I used to see chefs that would argue with health inspectors, and I never knew why. I was like, why are you fighting with them? Because yeah, you might have been right on that one point, but now they're going to find 10 other ones that you might be wrong on. Maybe they're going to be lenient on you. So it's just, I'm always respectful and nice. I know you usually can't offer them something to eat or drink. Yeah, they usually say no, but be as respectful as possible to the health inspector. Walk with them. And when they point something out, if you can, correct it immediately. So if they say, hey, that's improper hierarchy storage, you say, thank you so much for pointing that out. I'll get on that right away. And then you switch it right in front of them. At least they know you're proactive instead of saying, oh, okay. And then you sit there and you argue with them as to it's so-and-so's fault. That normally doesn't happen. It's like, no, just fix it. They don't care whose fault it is. It's in your kitchen. You're running it, right? You're responsible. Fix it. At the end of it, sit down with them, review the things that they went over, create an action plan, and implement your action plan quickly. The sooner you take care of those actions, the better, because a lot of times they turn right around and come back and re-inspect you. And you want to make sure that you're showing that you're the person for the job and that you want to run a clean kitchen. On top of all of that, having a clean kitchen is better to work in. It's more comfortable. It's more organized. It's the sign of a good chef. Anyway, that's it for today. You know what to do. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you leave 5 stars, nothing less than 5 stars. Why? Well, because it's a 5-star podcast, obviously. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you want more exclusive content, go subscribe and become a premium member on my Substack. I'll link it in the show notes. Go to chefspsa.com. You get the new book I just put out, Bad Cooks Everywhere. You get all the books on Amazon, really. You get this hat. We'll see you next week. Hit the porno music.
Yo, it's André in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction. Stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, class is in session.